And then the other thing is we simply need to educate Christians on our own history. So in my book, When a Jew Rules the World, I've got a few chapters where I trace the history of the development of theological ideas in the church, and I show how ideas lead to actions. So, and I call it the deadly logic of supersessionism, the deadly logic of replacement theology, and it's real simple. Once I say, is it Marcelo? Once I say, and forgive me, using you as once I say God no longer likes Marcelo, God's mad at Marcelo. God's will is that Marcelo and his family are dispersed among the nations, that they're dissolved, they don't have a homeland anymore. That's God's feelings toward Marcelo. That's God's will for Marcelo, and I'm a servant of God. So the logic is, how should I treat Marcelo and his family? And so this became, in church history, you see it early, like as early as the first century, you start seeing Gentiles introducing replacement theology, and then within a few generations, a few centuries, you see Christian theologians asking what they called it the Jewish question. How should we treat the Jews? Should we treat them with kindness and maybe they'll repent, or with harshness and maybe they'll repent? And so this became the Jewish question. It was a theological debate within the church, and it went on for hundreds of years. Well, eventually Luther comes along, the Reformation, and he writes a book at the end of his life called On the Jews and Their Lies, and he says, I'm going to answer the Jewish question. He goes, here's the answer. Here's what we should do. And he lays out about 13 things, and he says things like this: burn their synagogues to the ground, cover over even the rocks that are left with dirt, do the same thing to their houses, because they commit the same abominations in their houses that they do in their synagogues. Drive them like screaming dogs from one city to the next. And you go, wait, this is Martin Luther, the father of the Reformation, said this about people, my people, your family. And we go, yeah, and then Hitler, and it's undeniable. And this comes from bad theology. And then Hitler comes along, who's not a Christian, but he builds upon the foundation that Christian theologians, that Martin Luther laid, and he says, I'm going to offer the final solution.